of the show. We're now joined by our friend Jon Cooper, Ourlad's Guide to the NFL Draft. John, okay, it's a week from the draft. What is it like the next week? Is it almost not chaos because you want to have everything like the hay's been put up in the barn, but what kind of goes on over the next 7 days?
Well, the scouts and they're putting the finishing touches on the board. The coaches, some of them have their off-season workouts going on too. So it's kind of business as usual because a lot of this has been done. I know some teams spend a lot of time doing mock drafts now. Is coaches and Scott, not so much the coaches, but sometimes the coaches get involved doing mock drafts just to kind of see where players might fall. Maybe some possible trades or scenarios are brought up, and they try to play, I guess you could say role play every possible scenario that could come up. And, massage the board a little bit as some of these reports, medical reports come in, the reports on security, they call them the security reports, things that might be in the background of some of these players. They do these pretty thorough background checks. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. And I know one team in particular, what they used to do is the day before the draft, they would tell everybody to go out, play golf, do something else. Stay out. We're gonna be putting in some long days and nights, so get refreshed a little bit. So that's just one team I knew of.
John, I just saw this on Twitter that Kalijah Cansey, one of the best defensive prospects in the draft, has not had one single top 30 visit. Is that surprising and peculiar to you?
Yeah, that is a little bit because, we have him in the top of the second round is where we have him ranked. Of course, that wouldn't be a top 30 visit, but I would think that somebody would like him. But, it's not a great year for defensive tackles, so that might be a factor. I think maybe other needs are bigger. But, sometimes teams bring guys in, they call them top 30 visits, but they're really guys that are guys they might draft lower. I mean, like, for example, it might be a third, fourth-round pick at a position of need that they want to get to know this guy, and they bring him in on that. So those things can be, just relevant to the team.
John, what do you think the chances are that Tyree Wilson could potentially go ahead of Will Anderson? That's been some of the scuttlebutt. I know it's all talking season right now, but what do you think the chances are of that, and does that make sense depending on how that unfolded?
Well, the only thing I would say about that is, Will Anderson has a unique skill set. We think he's a top guy, athletically in the draft. He might not be a fit for everybody. I mean, a lot of teams see him as a 3-4 rush linebacker. And certain defensive schemes might want a little more size, more bulk, as to that. But I still don't see Tyree Wilson going ahead of Will Anderson. I mean, that would really surprise me if that happened.
If you look at Houston and where they are, obviously they need a quarterback. There is always the speculation of whatever might happen. They also have another pick not too far after that, I believe. What would you do? If Young goes or if whoever Stroud's a bit, would you take it there or would you play that game, trade down and get more collateral?
Well, Houston needs a quarterback. That is, hard to deny that. I mean, I think I could see them trading down maybe 2 or 3 picks, but I don't think they're going to trade down, especially having that, number 12 pick in the draft right now. I don't see them doing that. I see them taking a quarterback, somewhere in the first 4 picks.
John, do you think that Hendon Hooker is starting to sneak into the first round?
Yes. I've kind of felt that could happen a long time ago. I mean, we really like Hendon Hooker. And I think if he was not coming off that ACL, I think he would definitely be a first-round pick. And I think that's the only trepidation teams have. But, you get that extra year with a first-round pick. And so, that's something that, you have to take a look at. He's a solid player. He's got great ability to scan the field, even though their offense didn't do that. But he could find alternate receivers, and he gets the ball out in a hurry, and he throws it where guys can run after the catch.
We're going to have John Gaines II from UCLA, a very athletic has played every position, I believe, on the offensive line. Do you have much on him and your thoughts? Because it does appear as if he could be a second-day pick.
Yeah, I think he's a second slash third day pick. We have him as an interior guy as far as we think where he's going to go, based on his measurements. But he's a solid player, for sure. And that's not a position, in all honesty, that is the interior guys that is that strong. So he could jump up on a lot of boards.
John, I want to ask you about a couple of edge guys out of the Big 12. I've over these segments asked you about various guys from around the league, but from K-State, Felix Anadike-Uzama, and also Will McDonald of Iowa State. I'm not sure if I've asked you about either one of those guys, but your thoughts on either player, and I've seen them a lot in like the second round as far as some of these mock drafts go. Does that sound about right to you?
Yes, we like them both a lot. I think McDonald from Iowa State, he's a little bigger. We might be talking about top 10 pick. I mean, that's going to be the knock on him. He's been an off-the-ball linebacker, early in his career. He's very explosive coming off the edge, and he's got about as much bend and quickness off the edge as anybody. But, he doesn't have the bulk, that you're necessarily looking for somebody who's going to line up as a 5 technique consistently. He's like a rotational edge rusher. We see him who's going to be, we think, a very productive NFL player. Felix Anadike-Uzama, I don't know if I pronounced that right, from Kansas State. We actually have him as a grade that is just below the first round, and we may like him more than some people. We like the fact that he can come off the edge. He's got great speed coming off the edge. He can bend and squeeze around to the quarterback. He does a lot of things really well. Uses his hands well. He can, bull rush into a move. We think he's a solid player, and and again, we think we may be a little higher on both of those guys than some. But McDonald, his biggest thing going with him is he's 238 pounds. But he's got all the other measurements that you look for in an edge rusher.
How do you feel about Houston quarterback Clayton Tune?
We're down the line on him. We don't have a real great grade on him. We see him as a third day pick. I mean, he does some things well. There's all these quarterbacks have redeeming qualities, and we think he's going to get drafted. Is the thing that worries you just a little bit about him is you're not sure of the overall arm strength. But like I say, he's got decent movement skills. He's a competitive player. We think he can, go smoothly into an NFL style offense. Ball security is not the best. The athleticism is okay, but he is a little bit heavy footed, I should say. But he can put the ball in the bucket on vertical routes. He does some good things. So, he flashes solid skill as a quarterback.
What position is the biggest risk year in and year out as far as the hit and miss factor?
Well, I think it's quarterback, in my opinion, because you never really know what you have until you get them in the room. How many first-round busts have we seen as quarterbacks over the years? Typically there's going to be about, maybe anywhere from 12 to 18 drafted. And I don't think there's a lot of, if you really look at the hit and miss ratio of quarterbacks, it's not that great. One general manager once told me you don't know for sure what you have till you get them in the room. So you see what they can do on the field with your receivers. Can they get the ball in a tight window? Are they going to force the ball? What's their mental makeup? So that, to me, is the biggest hit and miss position in the draft. And all you got to do is take a look at recently at some of the guys that have not panned out.
One more thing, and we appreciate it. We asked you about names. You don't know who we're going to ask you about. On occasion, I'll trade a text with you that say, hey, let's talk about the mid-round or maybe this position or that, but you don't know who we're going to ask you about. How many of the prospects who are going to be drafted this weekend are up in your filing cabinet where you just rattle them off? Because it seems like there are a ton of them.
Well, there are. I've looked at so many players, but quite frankly, I'll draw a blank on one every now and then. But we've written like today. I did on one quarterback from UCLA. I called him the name of the linebacker named Dorian Williams instead of who he is. So yeah, that's going to happen, with those guys. But I've looked at so many players, particularly defensive guys, that you can remember them relatively well. But there's there's a lot of them that are down the line that you kind of have to let the computer boot up a little bit before you can know who they are, or remember exactly what the characteristics, because they do run together after a while.
I bet they do. You do a great job with it. Jon, the draft is a week from tomorrow, excuse me. Is there a chance we squeeze you in one more time next week, the day before the draft?
Yeah, sure.
All right. I'll be in touch. Thank you very much. Jon Cooper, Ourlad's guide to the NFL draft, Ourlad scouting service, or have been able to ask